So just beginning the practice lying down onto your backs. So props, if you've just joined, perhaps a bolster or a block. We're going to be exploring twists, rotations in the body today. But for now, you're lying down in a central position. And sometimes we think we're lying centrally on the body, but perhaps the legs are at an angle, perhaps the body is at an angle, maybe favouring one side to the other. So you can just look up and just look and check in with the legs, maybe make an adjustment from the hips downwards, or just get a sense, is the shoulders level? Is the head level? Quite often we favour one side and we hold the head more one side than the other. So just begin to just centre the body. Feel as though there's a plumb line going down the centre from the top of the head. And the weight is feeling even either side of the body, left and right. Making any adjustments so that both sides of the body feel equally wide as you breathe in. And then just let the whole body relax into gravity as you breathe out. Just getting that sense of evenness as you breathe in, both sides of the body wide. And then that release as you soften and exhale. Just settling into the body through the breath. A few more rounds of breath. Just breathing in through the nose, out through the nose. A few more conscious rounds of breath. Start to stretch the arms above the body. So just starting to just wake up the body with a little bit of movement, pointing through the fingers and the toes. Stretch more through the right side. Stretch more through the left. Which side perhaps feels a little bit more open than the other? And then an even stretch either side of the body. Just release the arms to the side, so arms out shoulder height, palms can be up or down. And then let's explore a few different ways of rotating on the back. So we're going to start with the feet wide. So you're going to have your feet maybe as wide as your mat if you have one, with your feet on the floor and your knees bent, I should have said. So yeah, knees bent for the twist. Feet wide as the mat, arms to shoulder height. And then just dropping the knees over to one side. And through the rotations, we can take the head in the opposite direction. So you get a sense of like a spiraling through the body. There's lots of spirals, natural spirals in the body. And as we turn the head, we're just creating a spiral shape. But check that that feels okay. Keep the knees where they are. Bring the head back to the center if you move the head. And then pick up the head just a couple of inches maybe, or millimeters off the floor, and then turn the head again away from the knees. See if that makes any more difference. Does it give more freedom in the neck? It's not a right or wrong, just exploring different options. And then noticing the breath in the rib cage, particularly in this twist. So the breath in the side of the ribs that's more on the floor, and then that open side of the ribs as well. Looking for that expansion widthways into the back line of the body, the side and the front. And then bring the head and the knees back into the center. Take the twist to the opposite side. And then turn your head, and if it helped you on the other side to lift the head, then you can lift the head on this side before you turn and then place it back down onto the mat. Let's check the feet have stayed as wide as possible. And then feeling the expansion into the lungs, the side of the ribs that are more on the floor, the open side of the rib cage. Just exploring an even breath still in this twist. So can you breathe widely into the ribs, into the back of the ribs, the side and the front of the rib cage. And then bring your head and your knees back into the center. Heel and toe your feet in so they're now hip width distance. And now explore your twist again with the feet in a different position. Keep the arms where they are for now so you can compare. How does this feel to the feet wide? Do you feel it in a different part of your body? Turning the head, either keep it on the mat or just lift it slightly and then place it back down. And then breathe deeply here. So internally in the twists, we're also affecting the organs of the body. It's encouraging more blood flow into the organs, particularly around the kidneys and the liver, as we take that twist and that rotation. A little bit more blood flow into the organs of the body. So it's an internal practice as well as maybe a more peripheral practice of what you feel in the muscles of the body. And then come back into the center, head and knees. Take the twist to the opposite side, keeping the arms where they are for now, so you can compare one side to the other. Know that we're not usually even. One side might be more open. And within your ribs, of course, are your lungs, being protected by the rib cage. And the majority of the lung capacity is at the back of the body. So focusing there on breathing, particularly into the back of the ribs, which sometimes we neglect. Side, front of the rib cage, so we're practicing that three-dimensional breath. And then bring the head and the knees back into the center. You don't toe your feet in so they're now touching, inner edges of the feet together. We're going to keep the arms exactly where they are. And then we're going to take the twist. So we'll go to either side, but if you're going to the right, I want you to press your right leg into your left. And if you're going to the left, press your left leg into your right. So you're using also some control here, particularly using that resistance and using the core. The inner edges of the feet stay touching. So one foot, top foot lifts off the floor. Bringing the head to the opposite side if it's comfortable for the neck. And then internally, within the body, the lungs are different either side, right and left. So there's 3 lobes of the lungs on the right, and there's only 2 on the left. I don't know if it makes any difference to the breath, but the lungs are making space for the heart on the left. So 3 lobes on the right, 2 on the left. Coming back into the centre and then moving to the opposite side. So this is where the body is deliberately uneven to accommodate for other organs within the body. But we might also physically feel that unevenness. And remember, this is about being human. We work at bringing as much balance as we can, but understanding there's usually a difference, our uniqueness. And then coming back into the centre. And then we'll explore with the feet lifted. So as long as that feels okay for your back, if not, please stay with one of the previous versions. Maybe go to the one that maybe gave you more freedom in the body. Or lift the feet from the floor. Keep the arms where they are. So you can have your palms down if you want to for this one, to give you a bit more support if your palms are up. And then taking the legs over to one side. So I want you to do the same as you did with the feet together. So if you're going to the left, you're pressing that left leg into the right. And if you're going to the right, you're pressing the right leg into the left. This is using a bit more control than we might do if we're not using that resistance. And if your knees don't reach the floor, this is where you can use your blocks, your bolsters underneath the legs to rest them on. Yep, so sort of to the side of the hip. Wonderful. And then rotating the head if it feels good and free in the neck. A few more rounds of breath here. Then bring your head, your knees back into the centre and notice physically how this might be quite different to with the feet on the floor. So we're having to engage more muscles of the body to keep the legs lifted away from the floor. So we're working against gravity here. So taking the knees to the opposite side. Remember, you've got options. You don't have to work the feet off the floor. Focus on the freedom of the breath in your pose. And then bring everything back into the centre, using the muscles of the body to control the movement. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Give yourself a little hug. And a little rock from side to side. And then roll to one side. And we'll come up to hands and knees. So for any wrist issues, work on the fingertips. So you sort of make like a little, I'll show you on the mat, but you make like a little tripod or spider shape with the hands. And it can actually help to strengthen into the wrist joints. So for anybody, if you want to try that option, you can. You're up onto the fingertips rather than palms flat onto the mat. And your knees are underneath your hips. Take a few rounds of cat stretch, rounding the back up. And then releasing forward. And quite often once we've taken some rotations, we feel a bit freer in the whole of the spine. Created some space for the other movements of the spine. One more time. And then come back to a neutral position. I'll turn to the front. So when you're up on fingertips, this is how much you realise that you rely on the arms, because you'll feel the weight more in the hands. So see, for everyone, if you can be fairly light in the hands, there will be some weight through the arms, but as light as you can. And then we're going to take the right arm up to the side, rotate into the rib cage, and then feed the arm underneath the front wrist, and turn the ear, the shoulder. So if they don't meet the mat, it's fine, you can just hover. And then another one, straight arm up, and then feed the arm underneath. And bend the elbow of the hand that you're leaning on. You bend that left elbow. And then this time, slightly different. We're going to bring the elbow up. So we're going to bend the elbow first, and then straighten the arm. And then feed the arm underneath. So just a different option. You might feel on one of those, you get more freedom in the ribs. And then feed the arm underneath. Take two more and work with the one that gave you more freedom. You either come out to the side with a straight arm, or you bend the elbow first close to the rib cage, and then you open the arm out like a wing. And then this last one you're going to hold in this twist. So as you bring the head down, you turn shoulder and ear to the floor. And if you don't reach the floor, you can please use your blocks or your cushions to rest the head. Now that top arm, just explore maybe lifting the elbow. How does that feel? Lifting that top elbow. Breathing into the ribs. And often we twist a little bit in the pelvis here to try and go further. But I want you to have the hips level to each other to get more movement through the rib cage. So getting a sense now that your weight is even through both legs. Is it even through both knees? Are the hips level? Could you place a cup of tea on the back of your hips? Good, one more round of breath. And then slowly press up. Lift up and then open back out to the right side. And then slowly release. Okay, let's go to the opposite side. So start with a straight arm, because you might think you know which one feels best, but it might be different this side of the body. So start with a straight arm out to the side, feed the arm underneath. Just take two with that option, and then try two with the other option with the bent elbow. So supporting elbow, I want you to try and keep it soft. So when you come up, not locking out that elbow. Good. And now the last two, take the option that feels as though you can gain more movement through the rib cage. Which one works best for you? And then after that last one, you're going to hold in the rotation with the arm underneath the body. And use any props to rest the head on. So as you turn, if it doesn't feel comfortable, you can rest the head onto cushions, onto blankets, onto blocks. Check in with the hip alignment. So we're not rotating into the hips. We want the hips fixed so we can rotate more through the spine from that fixed position of the hips. And then exploring just how much movement is there in that rib, in the rib cage. Can you start to maybe turn the head, pushing down onto that supporting hand or fingers and turning towards the ceiling with your gaze. It's not possible for everybody. It's not for me, but I have seen it done. Without forcing it, of course. And if you're a long way off to looking up to the ceiling, then maybe that's something to consider to work on into the ribs a little bit more. Okay, let's come back up, open back out to the left side. And then bring the hands down. Take a couple more rounds of your cat stretch here. Notice, does it maybe feel a little bit different after you've taken the twist? And then back to hands and knees. Have the toes together and take the knees wide. Coming to a child's pose here. Stretch the arms forward, rest the forehead. Please have your blocks underneath the back of your legs if your hips are not resting down onto your heels, so the hips can start to release. It could be your bolster, it could be your blanket or your cushion. So just take it underneath your seat. And if you need two, that's fine. If you need a block and a blanket, absolutely fine. And then take a twist from here. So lift your head, bring your right arm back towards you, palm up, reach the arm away from you as much as you can, and then rest down. And the left arm is forward. So you could be up on fingertips here. You could be up onto the fingertips. You could have the palm on the floor if it's comfortable. And then bring the arm from underneath the body. Sit back into your child's pose, arms stretched out in front. And then move to the opposite side. So feeding the other arm underneath and really lengthen the arm underneath as much as you can, because that's going to assist with the rotation in the rib cage. The other arm stretched out in front. If you want to bend the elbow, that's good as well. Come up onto the fingertips. Good. Have the knees apart so you've got a little bit more space for that rotation. So space for the tummy, space for the front of the ribs. Good. And then slowly release. Bring the head up. Stretch the arms forward. Come back into your wide child's pose. A few more rounds of breath here. And then come back to hands and knees. Another few rounds of cat stretch. So just taking the cat stretch in between, so we can just get a sense of, is anything changing? Is anything feeling different? The more twists we do. So we're going to come to stand. So you can either do that through a downward dog, but any wrist issues, then please just come up to stand. Just avoid that movement in downward dog through the ribs and come up to stand. Good. And then taking your feet wide, feet parallel, toes facing forward. Hands onto the hips. Get a sense that your weight is even through your feet, so through the heel of the foot, base of the big toe, base of the little toe. Visualize you're trying to zip your inner thighs in towards each other without moving your feet. And then we're going to come forward into a half forward bend. So you might want your blocks here in front of you, because we're going to come all the way down in a moment. You might need something to rest the hands on and then come back up. Draw the elbows back and come forward again. Does that feel any different? The elbows drawing back. As you come forward, check that your weight is still even in your feet, because often we'll hold back into the heels more. That evenness in the feet is using more of the strength of the legs and the muscles. And then slowly come back up. So we're going to come all the way down. So you might want blocks here, because we're going to come into a twist. We're going to come halfway and then release down. So we're going to have right hand onto the floor, and you could be up on fingertips here, and you can use your blocks as well. And the opposite arm, we're going to reach it forward, take it around the back of the body and place the palm onto the lower back, the elbow lifting up to the ceiling. Then press into the hand on the floor and lengthen your spine forward. And then begin to rotate from your ribs. So start to move from maybe around the navel, open out into the ribs, and the top shoulder is going to assist that twist. And then you can start to turn the head, but keep the crown of the head moving forward, not letting the head drop. Moving forward. If this is feeling okay, you can take your top arm up with your palm open. You might feel you get more twist, or you might prefer the hand on the lower part of your body. And with the hands on your lower back and your pelvis, just getting a sense there's not too much rotation there in the pelvis. We don't want to force the pelvis back, but the more stable and even the pelvis stays, the more you're truly, purely working into the ribs. Good, release here, bring the other hand down. And then take the opposite arm forward, sweep it back, palm onto the lower back. Good, press into the underneath hand that's on the floor and lengthen the body first. So we always want to see if we can create this space in the spine before we rotate, because you've created that space and then there's more space to twist. Good, crown of the head is moving forward. So you don't want it to drop down, because remember it's heavy. The head's heavy, and if you want to take that top palm up, please do try that, or stay with the hand on the lower back. Just getting the sense there's not too much movement through the pelvis. It's purely through the rib cage, lifting up and rotating. And then bring the hand back to the floor. Take your hands back onto your hips. Come halfway up. So I like to come up slowly from the forward bends. So you crown the head moves forward. This allows any regulation of your blood pressure as we come up. So if you do get lightheaded, never come up straight away. And then press firmly into the feet and come back up to stand. Good. Okay. Going to come back down and try a different version with this position. Forward bend, wide legged. So coming halfway down again. And then release. And then we're going to take the hands over to the left. So with both hands over to the left leg. And you hold somewhere around the ankle, maybe the outside of the leg. And then draw yourself over your front leg as much as you can. And then rotate. So the top elbow is going to bend, and you're going to see if you can bring your body through underneath that gap. The top elbow bending. There's still some weight in your right leg, your right foot. Rotating your ribs around. And you're underneath on that right hand, you can also pull on the ankle and draw the right ribs round. The right and left ribs rotating round. And then release. Come back through the centre, nice and slowly to the opposite side. Hold around the ankle, outside of the leg if you can. Keep some weight in the left foot and leg. And then draw your chest close towards your thigh. You can do this with bent knees. Draw your top elbow up. See if you can draw your ribs through the gap. And then put on your left hand to rotate your left ribs round. Your left ribs and your right ribs drawing round. And you're using the strength of your arms as well. And then release, come back into the center. Hands on hips, press halfway up. Weight even through the feet. Take your time here. And then come back up. To stand. Good, let's heel and toe the feet in. And we're just going to neutralize here and come into a mountain pose. Strong and steady feet firmly on the floor. It's going to come and check in with you. So you can have your feet together. You can have them slightly apart. The arms relax into the side of the body. Maybe palms slightly open, but not forcing that action. Crown of the head is lengthening up to the ceiling. And then invite your breath into your ribs. That three-dimensional breath into the back of the rib cage, the side and the front. Visualize a balloon in your rib cage. Just gently breathing in, expanding that balloon. Breathing out. Just releasing a bit of air from that balloon. Then drawing breath into the balloon as it draws up, in and underneath the ribs. Expanding the rib cage. Okay, we're going to come into a balance. So please come to the wall if you need. With your right leg next to the wall, because that will be your first side, your supporting leg. So left toes on the floor. And you can stay here because this is already a balance, because we're having to take more weight into that right leg. Or lift the foot from the floor, knee in line with the hip. We're going to rotate towards the bent knee. If your toes are on the floor, you're just going to twist your body, keep your hands on your hips and draw your elbows back. If your foot is lifted, you can take your right hand underneath the knee. Keep your left hand on your hip and rotate. Try and keep the knee where it is, so we're keeping that evenness through the pelvis. You could take your back arm and open the palm. Then you could bring your gaze towards that hand. So wherever you are, keeping the knee even, facing forward, getting that sense of that movement is through the ribs. The hips are stable. And then release slowly and back to the center, lower the leg. And then switch sides. So toe can stay on the mat, or you lift your leg, knees towards the line of the hip, it could be lower. You twist towards the bent knee. So if your foot is on the floor, your toes on the floor, just take your hands onto your hips, keep your elbows drawing back and move from your rib cage. And if you're lifted, take your left hand to underneath your right leg. Steady yourself there, keep the knee facing forward, rotate, take your back elbow behind you even more to get more rotation. And you could open the palm, long arm. It may challenge the balance a little bit more. The most important thing is that you keep coming back to this. As we lose our way, as we wobble. We've all had some big wobbles this last year. But the more we practice, the more familiar it becomes, the more the nervous system gets used to it, the more it becomes a habit. And then slowly release, come back into the center and lower the feet. Shake out the legs if you'd like to. Oh, lots of shaking, dancing going on here. Very good. Come back to your mats if you're off your mat. And then we're going to come down to the floor. So feet, let's come from the back of the mat and take a roll down. So have the feet hip width apart. Arms resting to the side of the body. Let the head relax and then fold forward. Just feeling the breath unravel the spine as you come down. You can take a few rounds of breath. And then walk your hands out along the floor. And come to a seated position. So just lower my screen slightly. So we're going to sit with the feet on the floor and the knees bent. So this position can look quite different for all of us. So place the feet in a position away from the body that allows you to sit with the natural curves of your spine. So you want that inward curve of the lower back to begin with. So if you're here, take the feet further forward and sit onto blocks and blankets as well as an option to give you that natural curve in your spine. So just exploring this, bringing the feet in and just bringing them to a comfortable position. We want some space between the tummy and the thighs so that we can take a twist. So from here, we're going to take the right hand and rest it just on the shins. Take the left hand behind and turn the fingers away from you, so you open out into the shoulder. And then press into the back hand, the back fingers. You can be on palms or fingertips. And then rotate. Rotate low from the navel area. That's just about where your ribs begin, the lower part of the ribs. Rotating here. Check in with your right shoulder is not coming with you. So just allowing that shoulder to rest down. And rotating and just allowing the neck to follow the movement. This is called a TP twist. And then release, come back to the other side. So just resting the hands across the shins, one shin or both if it reaches. And then the other hand behind, fingers facing away. So my fingers are pointing away from the body. You use the hand and the arm to lift, to find that length in the spine. And then you rotate from just below the navel. So starting low at the ribs and then spiraling. Feeling the chest open, the collarbones wide. The left shoulder not coming with you. Allowing it to just relax and draw back. Head turns. Take a few conscious breaths here and notice the breath in the ribs. Can you expand even more? And then slowly release, come back to the center. Cross-legged position. If cross-legged is not comfortable, please have your legs straight out in front of you. And then fingers to the side of the body, either side, and take that lift. So you press down into the fingertips and you lift your spine. And then bring the right hand across. Left hand behind, fingertips facing away. Press into the fingertips and again that same rotation. Just change the sitting position. That might feel a little bit different. If the front hand, if you can place the back of the hand on the outside of your thigh, you can try that version. And then you can use the arm as a little bit of leverage to twist, but checking that your hips haven't come with you. So the right hip is likely to want to move round. I want you to gently draw it back. So the movement is purely through the ribs, and you might feel like you've not gone as far, but in fact you've moved more through your ribs by making that adjustment. And then release back to the centre. If you're cross leg, change the cross of the legs. And then same on the opposite side. Fingertips to the side of the body. So if your legs are out straight, do the same. Lift, lengthen the spine first. Bring the left arm across, right hand behind. Another lift, because you might have collapsed down. So lift, lengthen, and then rotate. A slow, gradual movement. If you can reach that front arm and have the back hand to the outside of the thigh, you can try that version. And then when you've gone as far as you can, just check in with your left hip. Has it come with you? Can you draw it back slightly, but actually get more movement into the rib cage? And then release, come back to the front. Stretch the legs out in front of you. Please have soft knees for your lower back if you need. You could take your bolster or blanket underneath. Draw the toes up. Take a breath here. And then exhale, reach forward. Long spine. Check you can see your little toes. And release forward. So neutral. Or neutralizing position with the spine long. And breathing into the rib cage. And then slowly release. You can bring your arms high, keep them low for your back, slide them along the floor, and come back up to 6. Okay, we're just going to finish with a twist on the front of the body. So this is actually one of my favourites. Now you can do this without a bolster, but I'll show you with a bolster because it is a little bit less movement through the ribs. So if you've not done this line on your front before, you might want to try a bolster or a couple of cushions. We have the legs bent and just one ankle on top of the other. And then you take your hands, and we'll try it with the bolster and then I'll show you without. So you might want to try both. With your hands either side of the bolster up close to the thighs or the hips. And then you turn your body and then you bring your chest over the bolster. You have your hands either side. And then this is entirely up to you which side you place your head. So the same side of the knees is going to be more gentle on your neck. I usually start this way and then I explore a little bit later. Does my head want to turn? So you can do this without the bolster. You might want a blanket just to place the head on. It's the same movement, but it's a little bit more because you haven't got the bolster on the floor. You've got your chest down and your head turned. I tend to have my arms just like goalposts, or you can bring the hands forward like a diamond shape. And then both ways to twist or go further, you lift your body up and you lengthen it forward. You lengthen your ribs forward. And then you can explore turning the head. It's quite strong on the neck, so do what feels right for your body. So this twist, me and my teacher have called it the Tetley Twist because Mr. Tetley was a very wise, I think he's still alive, but if he is, he's in his 90s, a very wise physio. Blind, he was blind for many years of his life. He explored the movement of animals and how they rest. And you'll often see animals adopting this position. So he's Mr. Tetley, so we call it the Tetley Twist. Just be here a few more rounds with your breathing. You may get a sense of an unraveling, particularly when you come out of the pose. So while you're in it, but also as we come out of the position. So let's explore that coming out, just lifting up, allowing the body to just unravel. And then just taking this twist to the opposite side. So please use something underneath the body, bolsters, blankets, cushions, or you can try this without the bolster. You're just having your knees bent, your hips close to the bolster, maybe one ankle stacked on top of the other. So the legs is really just where works for you. So don't worry about the exact position of the legs, just you've got your legs folded. And you bring your chest over the bolster onto the floor and just rest here. Arms maybe like goalposts or diamond shape with the hands coming towards each other above the head. And if you want to keep your head on that same side, but you want to go a bit further, then you lift your body up and you lengthen it forward more. So you're creating that space as you lengthen forward. And then you rest back down. Good. So just check that your head feels supported, either on the bolster or a blanket or the floor. And just a few more breaths here in this shape. And then let's just explore that unraveling as we come out. It's lifting the head, allowing the spine to just neutralize as you come back up to a seated position. And any comfortable seated position, just take a few moments to just settle the body. Focus on the breath and the breath into the ribs. So all the way from the lower part of the rib cage, expanding out through the back of the body, the side and the front. Okay, so we're now going to relax. You can lie down onto your backs. If you want to use the bolster, then you can take it underneath your knees. You can lie over it if you want to have the chest a little bit more open, or just lie flat onto the floor. Layer the body. Have an eye pillow if you have one, or something over your eyes to block out the light, the distractions. And then in your own time, come into rest, to relax. Let's get a sense of how does your body feel, just as a whole, not the individual parts. How does your body feel physically, emotionally, mentally? Just bring your mind's focus onto your breath. Being aware of distractions of the mind, thoughts. When you do notice that, bring your attention back to your breathing. That one pointed focus of the breath. It's natural breathing. That gentle rhythm of the breath. It's relaxing you deeper. You have full permission here to completely and totally let go. Slowly, gradually, coming back to your awareness. Be aware of the space around you. Extend your awareness outwards. Begin to gently move your body, your fingers, your toes. Bring movement and energy back in. Maybe take a stretch, re-energize, reawaken, ready for your day ahead. Draw your knees towards your chest. Roll over to your favourite side. And then come back up to seated position, wherever's comfortable. If you opened your eyes, just closing the eyes again, or part closing them. Just keeping the awareness inwards. Just take a moment here to appreciate any benefits that your practice has given you, whether that be mentally. And then bring the hands to the heart. Bow the head, your mind, your body connect. And then blink your eyes open. Gently lift your head and lift your heart. Namaste.